When you think about meditation, what usually comes to mind? For most people, it's probably that image, right? Sitting quietly, trying to, stop thinking.
Yeah, that instruction, don't think about past or future, just the present. That's often seen as the core of it, focused on tranquility.
Exactly. But what if I told you that thinking itself, active thinking, isn't the problem? That it could actually be a key way to train your mind spiritually?
Well, that definitely challenges the usual picture.
It really does. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at a really powerful sermon by Venerable Ācariya Thoon Khippapañño, given back in '98 in Thailand.
It's called Methods of Training Wisdom, and it's become available more recently through translation. It shifts the focus from just calming down to actively using the mind for insight.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack this. We want to understand the difference he draws between, say, tranquility practice and this wisdom training.
And pull out the specific ways he says you can cultivate wisdom through thinking, through contemplation.
What does it actually mean to train your thoughts? How can reflecting on things, maybe even simple things, become tools for real change?
And it's interesting, the sermon was given around New Year's, so it fits nicely with thinking about, change, reflection, how we approach our practice.
Okay, let's get straight into that main distinction he makes. That phrase, don't think about past or future, he says it mostly gets interpreted in terms of tranquility meditation or samatha.
Right. And samatha, as described here, is about, well, prohibiting thought. Doesn't matter if it's a good thought or a bad one.
Just stop it.
Pretty much. The goal is one-pointedness of mind, samadhi, often using a focus word, a parikamma word, to keep the mind locked onto one thing. That's calm concentration.
Okay, so samatha, prohibit thought. But then there's the alternative, the focus of the sermon, insight development, vipassana, training wisdom.
And here's the kicker. He says this method is fundamentally the opposite.
Opposite how?
Because it's about thinking. It's not about shutting thoughts down, but about engaging with them, training them, even the ones that feel kind of, unfocused or random.
So you learn how to think about them constructively.
Exactly. That's the core difference. One says stop, the other says train.
Wow. Okay, so how do you train your thinking then?
Yeah.
The sermon gets specific, right? Especially about time, past, future, present.
Very specific. Let's start with the past. How can thinking about the past train wisdom?
Yeah, how? Usually we're told not to dwell there.
Well, he suggests two ways. First, recall your good deeds, positive actions, merit, charity, maybe helping build something useful.
Okay, remembering the good stuff. Why is that wisdom training?
It's for motivation. Strengthen your faith, feel content, even proud of the wholesome things you've done. It builds confidence in the path.
Ah, okay.
He uses this great analogy. It's like reheating soup. Don't let that warmth from past good deeds go cold. Bring it back sometimes.
I like that. Keep the positive energy going. What's the second way to use the past?
This one's maybe a bit more challenging. Recall seeing aging, sickness, and death in others. People you knew who've gotten old, sick, or passed away.
That sounds quite sobering. Why reflect on that?
The sermon's direct. It's to teach yourself to be afraid of that which being born entails. To really see that nobody escapes these things.
And to see yourself in that.
Exactly. To realize you are subject to the same process. Comparing yourself to others' past experiences to face your own future reality, it's a confrontation with impermanence.
So it's not morbid curiosity, it's a wisdom tool. Seeing the universal truth in others.
Precisely. Reflect on it often, he says. It's beneficial.
Okay, so past good deeds for motivation, past suffering and death for impermanence. What about the future? How does thinking about the future train wisdom?
Contemplating the effects of your actions, your karma. Understanding that unwholesome actions lead to difficult future states, and wholesome actions lead to better ones.
So really taking cause and effect seriously.
Yes. The sermon stresses that believing in karma makes you more diligent now. Knowing your current actions shape your future encourages you to cultivate goodness.
Makes sense. What else about the future?
Thinking about how precious human birth is, especially being born now, when the teachings, the Dhamma, are available, and there are teachers.
Seeing it as a rare chance.
An incredible opportunity, yeah. A chance to cultivate virtue that shouldn't be wasted just, going with the flow or chasing trends. Be heedful.
And he also mentions thinking about uncertain future rebirths. Like maybe you won't be born when the next Buddha appears.
Right. It reinforces the urgency. Make the most of this life because you don't know what comes next. Don't delay your practice.
This all ties into the present moment then. And this is where he really challenges the common view of practice, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He stresses that practice isn't something you wait for, not for a special time or place. It can be done at any time, any second.
So forget just doing short retreats.
He pushes back hard against that idea, entering Kammatthana for a few days, then leaving and thinking you're done.
Like ticking the meditation box for the year.
Exactly. He says, if you entered, why did you leave? Practice needs to be continuous. It would have been better to remain in Kammatthana.
So entering Kammatthana here means more than just going on retreat.
In this context, yeah. It means training the mind to be steadfast, unwavering in virtue and wisdom all the time. It's a quality of mind, not just a location.
That quality of steadfastness that connects to samadhi, concentration. But he talked about two kinds, which seems really important here.
Crucial distinction. He separates tranquil concentration from steadfastly focused concentration.
Tranquil concentration, that sounds like the deep, silent mind state.
It does, and he describes it as hard to get unless you have a certain character, maybe like an ascetic. It's like being deeply asleep, unable to think.
Okay, and the other kind?
Steadfastly focused concentration. He says this is much more accessible. People of all statuses, all people can do it. It's calm, but only minimally, like being asleep, but they are not. The mind is focused, but still functional, still able to think.
Okay, focused but awake. And this is the one that works with wisdom.
This is the key point. He says that famous phrase, where there is concentration, there is wisdom. Where there is wisdom, there is concentration, refers specifically to this type of focus working together with wisdom.
Not the super deep, tranquil state.
No, that state is apparently past that point for developing wisdom in this active way. It can't support it.
Wow. So how does this more accessible, steadfast focus arise?
He mentions using the parakama word, the focus word, but also, and this is really relevant here, using mindful wisdom itself to shape or generate the focus.
Wait, so wisdom can create this kind of concentration? It's not just that concentration leads to wisdom.
It seems so. They can work together, mutually supporting each other. And he gives everyday examples. Like writing a book with focus, driving a car, focused, doing housework, focused.
Paying attention while you're doing something.
Yes. And he says that focus is concentration. It's innate in us when we work, but we just don't usually recognize it as concentration in the Buddhist sense.
That's kind of mind-blowing. That everyday focus when you're absorbed in driving or coding or cooking, that's a form of samadhi we can work with.
According to this teaching, yes, it's a readily available resource, and it ties right back to training thinking. This focused thinking is where concentration, the focus, and wisdom, the thinking, meet and work together.
Okay, so the method is clear. Train thinking about past, future, present, using this kind of alert, focused attention. But what's the underlying problem this training tackles? He talks about scattered thinking, right?
Yeah, and he defines it in two interesting ways. First, the one we probably all know, mental frustration. Thoughts are all over the place, irrational, no anchor. You get annoyed, can't finish things.
Right, the monkey mind feeling. Got it.
But then there's another kind. Thinking along mental formations. Thakkara. Fabricating thoughts, constructing scenarios, maybe daydreaming.
Pleasant daydreaming. How is that scattered?
It might feel good, you might even smile. But the sermon says this is also scattering. You're lost in constructions, pleasant ones maybe, but still just constructions, drifting along worldly lines, not grounded in seeing things as they are.
So both the agitated scattering and the pleasant drifting are problems.
Okay. And this scattering, both kinds, is often fueled by something he calls supposition, or sammuti, conventional reality, the labels, the agreements we make.
Like, this is my car, this is my job.
Exactly. Based on laws or social conventions, that's true. But the problem starts when we create these suppositions and then become deluded by them.
Deluded by our own labels.
Yes. He says you are deluded by your own thoughts. You are deluded by the world and the endless cycle of rebirth. And this delusion, moha, isn't far away. It's right there on your lips. It is right there in your mind. It's immediate.
And this delusion, believing this is me, this is mine, is what keeps the cycle going. That's what leads to rebirth.
That's a connection made here. The clinging and attachment that come from this delusion, this sense of me and mine, is what creates your rebirths and existences. We're reborn because of attachment.
And how does ignorance, avijja, fit in?
Avijja is described as not knowing the truth, even according to the conventions you've set up. It leads to more delusion. It's like a strand of hair hiding a mountain. Something small blocks a huge reality. We neglect to see ourselves clearly. We fumble because we're lost in these layers of supposition and delusion.
Okay, so the core issue is this tangle of scattered thinking, creating labels, suppositions, getting deluded by them, which fuels attachment, suffering, and rebirth.
You got it. Which leads directly to the solution the sermon offers.
Which is wisdom, right?
Exactly. The central principle, greed, anger, and delusion. The root problems, kilesa, can only be truly dealt with through wisdom. Using a focus word, parikama, might suppress them for a bit, but it does not endure. You need wisdom to uproot them.
Makes sense. So how does wisdom tackle, say, greed?
Well, greed arises after you've created a supposition of mind. The object itself, the money or whatever, isn't the greed. The greed is in the mind, which is deluded by its own label of ownership.
Samadhi. So you fix the delusion about ownership.
Yes, by contemplating the truth. Using wisdom to examine the postulate. There is nothing in this world that truly belongs to us. Really evaluate that.
How does that work practically? We need things to live.
Right. While alive, you rely on possessions, the four requisites: food, clothing, shelter, medicine. But wisdom sees they are only momentary. When you die, that conventional ownership disappears. The stuff stays here or goes to someone else. The samadhi doesn't go with you.
So contemplating the temporary nature of ownership even while using things.
Exactly. Thinking like this, according to the truth, weakens or sheds greed. Wisdom opens up the path, exposes the truth, uncovers the world's secrets hidden by delusion. He quotes, Nati loka rahonama, no secrets in the world. Wisdom reveals all.
Okay, that's greed. What about anger? How does wisdom handle that?
Well, nobody likes anger. Not the person feeling it, not others, not even animals, he says. But we still get angry.
True. So what's the fix?
The direct cure is love, goodwill, loving kindness, metta. You don't just fight anger head on. You actively cultivate love as a substitute.
Ah, replacing the negative with the positive.
Precisely. And wisdom plays a role here, too.
Yeah.
You use wisdom to analyze anger, see its harm, the suffering it causes for you and others. Teach yourself cause and effect. Do I like feeling this? No. That analysis helps you let go and motivates you to cultivate love instead.
So wisdom sees the cause-benefit, and then you practice metta, and finally delusion, the root of the other two.
With delusion, you use wisdom to analyze and examine whatever you don't understand until you truly know it.
And what does truly knowing mean here?
It means knowing according to reality's fundamental nature, impermanence, anicca, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and not self-anatta.
Seeing things are temporary, inherently unable to provide lasting satisfaction, and lacking a fixed, independent me.
Yes, truly knowing that nothing ultimately belongs to you, that you must separate from everything held dear. This world is where beings cycle because of delusion. This is me, this is mine.
So wisdom trains the mind not to be so attached, to see ownership as conventional, samadhi, things as just supports for daily life.
Right. It's about developing vijja, true knowing, clear seeing to replace ignorance, avijja. Vijja destroys avijja. You cultivate this through your own wise investigation.
This makes so much sense. Wisdom isn't passive. It's this active tool that cuts through the confusion, the greed, the anger, by revealing how things actually are underneath our assumptions.
And the sermon really hammers home that because these defilements, these desires, cause problems daily, wisdom needs to be applied daily. Do not leave it for another day.
Back to that continuous practice idea.
Exactly. The analogy used is wiping a mirror. Dust and dirt land on it every day. You have to clean it constantly. Wisdom is what cleans and disciplines the mind, day in, day out. Practice isn't just for retreats. It's like always being in kamahana.
What about book learning? Does studying texts help here? The sermon has a specific take on that too, right?
It does, and it's quite pointed. It says studying texts or manuals alone can't solve these deep problems. In fact, it can even create problems.
Create problems, how?
Things like conceit, arrogance, maybe disrespecting others, if that knowledge isn't managed by wisdom, if it just puffs you up intellectually.
Wow. So knowledge can be counterproductive if it leads to ego.
If it's not applied with wisdom to understand yourself in reality, yes. He contrasts this sharply with knowledge that comes from mindful wisdom. That kind of knowledge does solve problems. Wise people use knowledge that way. Foolish people use it for status or argument.
So it's how you hold and use knowledge filtered through genuine wisdom that counts, not just accumulating facts.
Precisely. And then he gives practical principles for applying this wisdom in the middle of life.
Like knowing the proper time, kalanyutta.
Yes, knowing when it's appropriate to sit quietly and when it's time to use wisdom actively in the world. The example given is nurses caring for patients.
What about that situation?
He says, that's a time for wisdom. contemplating the patient's suffering, actively radiating loving kindness, metta, being compassionate. It's not the time to just close your eyes and recite a mantra, ignoring the person right in front of you.
You adapt the practice to fit the context. Makes sense.
Exactly. And other principles mentioned are knowing yourself, atanyutta, and knowing your social environment, parasanyutta. Understanding who you're interacting with, colleagues, patients. For the nurse, understanding the patient's situation and adapting yourself to help them to bring some ease.
That's really about integrating the Dhamma into your actual life and work.
Absolutely. The key line is, wherever the world is, that is where the Dhamma is. It is the same place. Practice isn't separate. It's right here, adaptable to any situation.
So how do you tell if someone is genuinely practicing this kind of integrated Dhamma? It's not about how many books they've read or years they've sat?
No. According to the sermon, you look at their actions and manners. These are the direct representation of the Dhamma in the mind.
So behavior is the real indicator.
Yes. Look for refinement, humility, skillful speech, kindness, lack of malice. If someone talks about practice, but, their face is ablaze with fire when things don't go their way, or they're constantly causing a ruckus, their sermon implies the Dhamma hasn't really taken root.
The fruit is visible conduct, humble, graceful, beneficial to others.
That's the idea. Behavior that's seen favorably by those around them, peers, teachers, even patients in that example. That shows the Dhamma is actually embedded.
This whole approach feels so active and practical. It really reframes practice away from just stopping thought towards purposefully training thought with wisdom.
It does. Using wisdom to directly see and dismantle the roots of our problems, greed, anger, delusion, which often stem from these very basic assumptions we make about me and mine.
And realizing the focused concentration needed for this isn't some mystical state, but something potentially present in our everyday focused activities.
And that this work, this wisdom training, isn't a special event. It's daily maintenance, like wiping that mirror clean every single day. Continuously applying wisdom to life as it happens.
Okay, so wrapping this up. We've seen this distinction between just stopping thoughts and actively training them. We've looked at how contemplating past, future, and present serves this training. We've understood the crucial role of steadfast focus, working with wisdom, even in daily tasks.
And how our problems often arise from scattered thinking and getting caught in our own suppositions, our own labels, leading to delusion.
And the solution proposed is wisdom actively analyzing reality, seeing impermanence, suffering, not self, cultivating love to cut through greed, anger, and delusion right where they arise, day by day.
It really puts wisdom front and center as the essential tool for liberating the mind, applied continuously in the midst of life.
So the final thought for you, listening to this deep dive, how might you apply this principle? Actively training your thinking, using wisdom as the guide to look at the scattered thinking or the suppositions causing problems in your own life right now.
Yeah, what mirror in your mind needs wiping today? And what specific kind of contemplation about the past, the future, or the present reality of things could you use as the cloth to start cleaning it?